Hello, this is Nick Kennedy, your gray man, on a very chilly Thursday evening. This week's been pretty weird. It was actually the other night. I was kind of chilly, and I asked my Google Assistant, what's the temperature outside, and it said with wind chill. Um, Wind chills it really matters because there's always wind, right? So it said three, like three what? But no, it was only 3 degrees. Um, for a minute there, I thought maybe I was back in Boston. I had to check around, and no, I was still in Georgia. But yeah, no, we've had a cold spell here. But I think in a few days it's going to be back in the 60s, which will be nice. I think it's always good to actually get the benefit of coming to Georgia. Anyway, today's an interesting review. I admittedly um, was a little late on this one. Um, I heard all these great things about a show called The Bear on Hulu, and there was a time a few months ago I actually thought I'd give it a shot, and I put it on, and it lasted maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes. Sometimes you just got to be in the right state of mind to give things a shot. And I saw it was a cooking show. And the thing about cooking is, I love to eat good food, but I don't really belong in the kitchen. One of my ex-wives banned me from the kitchen, actually. So I thought it was just going to be like maybe, a Julia Childs like series. So I kind of turned it off and went to something else. But after all the rewards it got the other night, and more buzz, I figured, okay, it's time to bite the bullet and sit through one of these, maybe more if I can stand it, and see what happens. And I got to tell you, this is a really great show. I'm so glad that I was proven wrong. This show hits in a lot of different areas, and I think to look at this as a show about cooking is to not do it justice. I think we're going to get into that, but I just want you to know that yeah, at this one I was late to the dinner table. Um, but the show, if for those of you who don't know, stars Jeremy Allen White, who I really didn't know, but I guess he was pretty popular from a show called Shameless that was out. He plays Carmi, uh, a very interesting character, because I guess I'm not going to give away too much. I'm just going to stick with the general premise, and that was that he came home. There was a tragedy in the family, and he came home. He was actually a chef in New York, and he was very successful there, very highfalutin restaurant, the best of the best. And he was like, I gathered that he was like number two chef there. And through a family emergency, he had to come home, and his brother owned a little restaurant. It looks like it's probably in the poor part of Chicago. Um, and he's trying to hold everything together. So he's got, maybe a $1 million taste and a 10-cent pocketbook for keeping this place going. And of course, it's chaotic. He's dealt with, dealing with really highfalutin, classy chefs, and he's got to deal with, dealing with a crew that has been doing this at the restaurant for many years. They're used to doing a thing a certain way, and they're not the most professional. Um, but I guess he's coming to a system that he's going to make work. And the interesting thing is that I gather, and I've only watched now 5 episodes. It's been out for 2 seasons. So those of you who probably have watched all the 2 seasons, I'm probably going to say a lot, or some here anyway, that correctly or incorrectly foreshadowing. I don't know if I tend to think I know where some of this is going to go, but essentially it seems to me that he's trying to get this place running better. He knows he can get it running better. He's frustrated. He's got bills. He's trying to get this place running. He's got people that don't understand what he's trying to do. He's got health inspectors that want to condemn the place. It's just a really, really chaotic situation. And surrounding him are also workers that that are struggling. You know, it's hard for a new boss to come in and start changing everything, and they don't know what it's like to serve. You know, the uh, highfalutin clients where he's been surfing in New York. They just know how to make a cheesesteak. Actually, it's Chicago, not Philadelphia, though. But I did see cheesesteak, so I know they make them. Anyway, the supporting cast is pretty interesting too. What I like about this is you get to know the characters, and then you get to know kind of the layers of the characters. They don't reveal it right away. The first episode, you kind of get a feeling of maybe who Camry is, I guess, a Carmy. I guess his name's Carmen. They call him Carmy. And then there's he calls him cousin, guy Richie. I don't think they're actually related, although they do call each other cousin for one reason or another. I don't really know why. And it starts with a new person on the job. I think I'm not completely clear on why she's there. I began to think at the beginning of the episode she was maybe bringing in for some experience at a class, but she stays on the show, so maybe I'm wrong there. But she's a very, very big part of a very big part, actually. I find her character very enjoyable, and she's Sydney. This is played by a woman, young woman. I mean, she's probably Gen Z. She actually grew up in Boston, my old stomping grounds, and I guess her father was Nigerian. Now, my wife will probably kill me for mispronouncing her name, but she did tell me that her name meant joy in Nigerian. My wife's Nigerian, but it's trying to think what it's Ayo Idebiri, and that's, I'm sure, butchered, and I apologize, but that's her name, Ayo Idebiri. Anyway, and she hasn't really done much. She's done some voice work before her work here. I looked up and I didn't really see a ton, but she's young. My daughter's her age, and it's a very curious character too, because I think that she shares the dream with Carmi that this place can actually be more than what it is. She actually was one of the few people who recognized his greatness, and she's like, "Why are you working here? Or what are you doing here?" She said, and his response was making sandwiches. And there's many layers to her too. First of all, she's very smart in the show. Now she's very smart. She adds a breath of fresh air. She's kind of a cutie. She comes in and she knows what she's doing. She knows what Carmi, what direction he wants to go in, and she's trying to assist him. She's probably more clerical than he is. He can make a great dish, and she sees how money is like walking out the door, or how they can get things better organized and make more money. You know, she's the books, really, or at least she should be. At this point in time, I think he's working the books, and she's taken over the head chef duties, which is kind of an interesting. I thought it should be the other way around. Anyway, maybe it'll happen that way. Those of you who watch the show all the way through, maybe. Richie, now that's an interesting guy too, because a lot of times, you know, you see these characters and you just kind of assume what they are, and Richie ends up, quite frankly, being a real pain in the ass. He's one of those guys that when you see, you just want to punch him. And you dismiss him as just being this kind of a jerk. The interesting thing about it, the character, is that I found the more you learn about him, the more you realize that there's layers to this guy. He's not just this big jerk that you can't get rid of. And I don't really know everything about him. I'm at the point where I'm beginning to see parts of his personality that they're revealing now that they didn't prior. So I don't know. I know he's probably got some issues with his daughter. I think he's married. I'm not really sure. He might be divorced. I'll probably find that out in the next few episodes. Again, I'm only at episode 5. And there's other people in the show. I don't really know their names. I think that they're probably going to play bigger parts as the show goes on. In the first few episodes, it does seem like every episode they try to reveal more of a character, and I would imagine it might go somewhat in that direction, continuously. Anyway, There's also an Uncle Jimmy, who I was very surprised. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I knew him, but geez, he looks so old. I guess we're all getting old. But it was Oliver Platt. Now, if you don't know who Oliver Platt is, you need to see more movies. He is a very good B actor who's been in a ton of things, going way back in the 80s and 90s. I mean, The Three Musketeers. I had that in one of my theaters at the Cape. I think that came out probably around, I would say 93. Also The Temp, I think that was somewhere in the 80s, maybe 87 or 88. Lara Flynn Boyle was in that. He was in a ton of things. I mean, too numerous to name. I hadn't seen him in a while, although I looked. He has been busy, but yeah, no, and he plays Uncle Jimmy again. They call each other family here. Uncle Jimmy, I'm not sure if he's really an uncle. And it's curious to me, because there are other cultures, for example, Nigerian culture. It's a sign of respect. If you're in a restaurant and there's a Nigerian waitress or what have you, or whoever's serving you, and you call her auntie, even though you just met her, it's a sign of respect. That much I know. I'm Irish, but my wife taught me that much. And I don't see that in American culture that much. This show, though, it does seem to have it. They call each other cousin and uncle, and I get the feeling that they're not really related, which is interesting. There's also an overtone of Italian, which I wouldn't understand with my second wife with Italian. I know all about the food in Italians. Believe me, my goodness, you go over the in-laws at the holiday season, and all the daughters were trying to outdo themselves with cooking. Unbelievable layout. But so yes, but so that would kind of explain the family things. Italians were big on family too, but I'm getting the impression that they're not really Italians. I think Uncle Jimmy we've mentioned as being Greek, and as far as Richie, I'm not really sure what he is, but someone said to him, "You're not even Italian." So I don't know where they're going with that, but it is an interesting thing that there's this family feeling there. And like I said, in some cultures that brings people together closer, even though you're not technically relatives, which I found kind of an interesting part of this. There's like I said, there's other people. I don't really know much about them. I'm sure they'll come into play. There's a woman who is Spanish, pretends not to speak English when she hears something she doesn't like, which I've done that actually. So, guilty. I don't do it often though, but I have done that. But yeah, no, and then there's a couple of other guys that I don't really know much about. I'm hoping to find out more about them as the show goes on. What's interesting about this, though, is it's not really a show about cooking. I look at it as more of life. I mean, they all get there, and they all smiling and making jokes and complaining, going out smoking cigarettes and having a laugh and calling each other's names and laughing. And a couple of times there's even been kind of a playful fight, one not very playful. But what struck me is these people have real issues. They don't bring them to work. And it just kind of reminded me, I mean, I think all of us, we have with times in our lives where things just, don't seem to be going our way. And we just so much want to punt, and you're like, how can I even get through this day? And then you're thinking to yourself, how can I not get through this day? Anyway, what you do is you just have to put on a smile and go out there and pretend that this is the greatest day of your life, and laugh and joke. And inside, you might feel like crying or dying. And I think that's what this show does. And that's why I find so interesting is show by show, they're showing us each and every one of these people and their own problems. I think I mentioned already that Carmi's had a family tragedy that he's trying to deal with this. He's also got a sister who I get the impression that her and Carmi are the only ones of the family that are really left. And I could be wrong, but from the episodes I've seen. And if I had to guess, I've not seen a ton of her, but I would tend to think that she's reaching out for him because he's the only family she feels she has left. And he's not there, and he's trying to get the restaurant going, and she's trying to deal with loneliness. She's got a husband who the family hates. I want to say family, I mean family as in the restaurant family as well as her real family. I guess he's not really a well-liked guy. Don't know how that's going to play out, which is interesting. But yeah, so I mean, the sister's probably suffering with loneliness and obviously mourning of the death of her brother. You get Carmi, who's trying to deal with the death of the brother and also getting the restaurant running. Now you got Sydney, who's played by that young Nigerian. I don't want to pronounce her name again. I might mispronounce it. Ayo Edibiri. Ayo. I'm sorry, Ayo, if that's you. I'm doing the best I can. Anyway, she's really a very interesting character because she, from what I can see, is Gen Z. I mean, she's around my daughter's age. So I kind of know, and she's a mystery so far. I mean, she comes in, she really knows the business. She really has the big overview of what he wants, and she shares that ideology with him. But then you see one night, you see her at home, and she's got like a little girl's bed, and she's got movie posters that you'd see on a child's bed. It's really weird, actually, because she's probably in her late 20s. I think her character might be mid to late 20s. I don't really know. They haven't heard an age yet. But when she goes in there, she's all business, and she's actually trying to teach him some things, and he is certainly teaching everyone there some things. But at night, she just goes into, and she lives with her parents, which would make you kind of dismiss her as being a lightweight. You know, she's in her late 20s and she's still living with her parents. I mean, I wasn't with my parents. Geez, I was long gone. I think, I'm not sure I was there at all my 20s. But anyway, the point is, then you get it to some idea, some clue that maybe she had some bad luck. I think that there was a catering business. It's not been really clear, but you're getting the idea that maybe she actually took a chance and had to take a step back. And I think we've all done that. I mean, I know there was a time after my first divorce, and I had to, for a time, go back and stay in my parents' attic for a couple of months. So, you do have to do what you have to do to survive. So I'm thinking that might be what she's gone. Maybe they kept her room that way for sentimental reasons. But what I really like about this is getting back to the challenges of surviving the day. When I was this is one of those tangents I'm known for. When I was growing up back in the 70s, I used to love watching the fights. Ali and Frazier and Norton, for those guys who are old enough like me to remember those days. And they always seemed to go 15 rounds, unless Foreman was involved. Foreman, I don't think Foreman in his younger days, they went much. I remember any. I know in his later days they went a distance when they were 12 rounds. But I'd have to think real long and hard. I think he might have actually been taken the distance by Jimmy Young, but I'm going off on a tangent again. But my point was, what really was fascinating to me watching these fights was the first few rounds, obviously, where there's a feeling out process. But then the later rounds, which they don't have 15 anymore, they stopped. They stop after 12 now due to the death of Dooku Kim, I guess is what they did. They decided, because I think he died in later rounds, that they would cut off 3 rounds so it'd be less dangerous. I don't know if it makes a difference. But the point I'm trying to get to is when you watch these guys come out and, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th round, when they can barely stand and they've given it all they got. And not only that, but they've been beaten on these monstrously huge, strong guys for 15 rounds, and what they have to go out there, that separates the boys from the men. And in this show, I kind of see that kind of wariness where people just stop and have to take a breath, because it's one of those days where just you swear that no one's ever suffered like this before. Everything's going wrong, and somehow you just got to pull it all together. You got to finish the round. And that's, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's kind of what I saw from this. And I thought that was pretty symbolic. It's just a way of, how are we going to get through the day, let alone how are we going to get through the week, maybe next month. It can be a task, and I think that's the point. Is these people are each going through, excuse the language. I think they're all going through their shit, but come the morning, they've all got to put a smile in and go in and make things happen, and hope that life doesn't throw them another curveball. So trying to think what else I want to mention about this. I know it's done by, I want to say, God, his name's Chris Storer or something, is the writer, and he's director. I think the only thing that I saw of his and that was of note is, I guess he's did a show called Raimi, which has been on for a few years, and it got pretty good reviews. I've not seen it myself. But no, I've got to tell you, for somebody, I expected to see the creator and director, and actually he writes it too. I thought that he would have a long resume of this stuff, working his way up, but actually he looks pretty young, and I didn't really see a huge backlog. He obviously had some experience, no doubt, but I'm pretty impressed with this show for somebody who hasn't been around for an exceedingly long time. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was it's pretty clever. So that's pretty much it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, oh, they call it a comedy, by the way. I don't know if it's a comedy. There's certainly funny parts, but thank God there's no laugh track. Keep the laugh track away from me if we can. But there's a lot of drama. I'm not so sure I would call it a comedy. I would call it a drama, and there are some things that are humorous in it. But yeah, no, and I got to tell you, if I've got to give this a scale, I'm still working on kind of a scale to give. On a scale of 1 to 10, though, I would have to give this a 9. However, I've only seen 5 episodes. So I might come back next week or next month and bring it down a little bit. But for the first 5 episodes of something I did not want to watch, wasn't looking forward to, it's about as pleasant a surprise as I've gotten recently. So yeah. So if you have any thoughts about it, or you think I'm wrong about something, if you think I'm completely off base, let me know. If you agree with me, let me know. And if you like it, like, subscribe, share, and I hope this was good for you too. And I'll talk to you later. This is Nick Henry, your gray man, signing off.